Coming up, Chris Bergoch joins Illeana in just a minute.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
And now, it's the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast, starring Illeana Douglas. Eavesdrop with Illeana as she interviews Hollywood's most prominent players about filmmaking, acting, and what really happens on the set of your favorite flicks and TV shows.
Hi, everyone. I'm Illeana Douglas. Welcome to the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast. We're raring to go. I'm welcoming the giggly Tamara Berg,
Hi, everybody.
my lovely co-host.
Hello.
So nice to see you post
Nice to see you.
Valentine's. Did you have a nice Valentine's?
Oh, yeah.
You went out. I got invited to a party. I didn't go. I stayed.
I did go to a party. I, as a
Watched the
rule,
Olympics.
don't celebrate Valentine's Day because the one time I did in college, went out for a romantic dinner with the boyfriend, and we were 6 inches from other romantic couples on either side, and it was incredibly loud, and the service was terrible, and it was one of the worst Valentine's Days I've ever had. So I definitely was like, no, never celebrating that again. So
I had
I don't.
one really good one, I think in 2013. That was about the last. It was about the last good one. Yesterday,
Was it like a dinner thing, or?
Yeah, it was dinner. I got invited to a fancy French restaurant. Got flowers and the whole bit.
I went to a pizza party last night is what I did.
Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it actually was really fun. It was absolutely not romantic, but I did love most of the people who were there.
I hope it's not going to be like New Year's, though, where I just thought, is it going to be a party and everyone's going to be kissing and then,
No.
I'm going to be talking about my squirrels and my...
Although your squirrels. If anybody wants to know, you are doing it on Instagram, aren't you? The squirrels? Yeah.
Yes.
Check
Fred
out
and
her squirrels
Fred and Ginger.
on Instagram. It's
Fred
quite
took
something to
raisins
see.
out of my hand this morning. I didn't video it because I didn't want to exploit him yet until he was fully. But he
trained.
But he took raisins, golden raisins, if anyone's interested. Pretty soon he'll be driving with me to Trader Joe's.
Sure.
To get his raisins and sunflower seeds.
Speaking of golden raisins, just really quick, my mom has problems with her joints in her hands, so she has a container of golden raisins that she soaks in gin, and every day eats a raisin or two. And goes, I swear it makes my joints so much better.
Wow.
Okay, Mom. All right.
That's a good one. I never thought of that.
There you go.
Never thought of that.
I wonder what Fred will think of gin-soaked raisins.
I know.
They
I don't
can't
want to
be
make him
bad.
drunken squirrel yet. So Chris Bergoch is on the show today, who I met at a screening of The Florida Project.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
a huge fan of this film. And of course, Tangerine, which is the film they did before, which really put them on the map, of kind of an iPhone movie.
Right.
But The Florida Project, really almost like we were talking about overnight successes of being an overnight success. And even someone like Willem Dafoe has been around for so long, and I'm so thrilled that he's getting an Oscar nomination.
Amazing.
But it's I want to talk to him about what it feels like to be just all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah, and overnight success is ridiculous because, of course, there's always a body of work that leads up to that. But it's that sudden success or sudden moment in the spotlight.
Yes.
I imagine it can be incredibly jarring. I look forward to knowing what it feels like. But
It is jarring.
Yeah, you've had that. You talked about it a little bit once, but I want to hear more.
I did. I wrote about it in my book, is that I was doing stand-up comedy. I thought I was going to be a comedian. I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was in a sketch comedy group called the Manhattan Punchline. And then I met Martin Scorsese, and I got cast in Cape Fear, and suddenly I was like dramatic actress. But this guy named Hank Gallo knew me from the comedy world. He'd seen me do stand-up. So I didn't even have a publicist. I barely had an agent. But I was in Cape Fear, and David Letterman saw Cape Fear, and he really was a fan of the film. And then Hank Gallo said, oh, I know her. She's really funny. She's a good comedian. So it was like lickety split. I was suddenly talking to this guy named Frank Gannon, who was then the show producer, one of the show producers. But I was on the phone with him for about 4 hours, basically auditioning for whether or not I was going to be on Letterman.
Right.
And I had a funny story about this because when I was doing stand-up, I won a contest about being funny, and the guy said that if I won the contest I could get to be on Letterman, and I won the contest, and I was like, when do I get to be on Letterman? And he said, oh no, you misunderstood me. I meant, someday you work really hard.
You're good enough that
someday
maybe
you'll be on Letterman. So that was, of course, one of the stories they wanted me to tell. They told me I had another story because I had met President Bush because I was doing a play at Ford's Theater, etc. And so I did the show, which was incredibly stressful, but literally, right before I did the show, because I had done Cape Fear, whatever it was, a few months before, but I had no money, and I was selling furniture out of my apartment.
Yeah, your own furniture. Not you were a salesperson at a furniture store. You were selling your own furniture.
I was always like, that was always my go-to, because I always had antiques or, would rummage New York, finding things on the street,
yeah.
And then reselling them.
Sure.
But I distinctly remember a guy, and I remember saying to him, I'm going to be on the David Letterman show, and I signed the bottom of the table, and I think I even wrote something like, I'm going to be famous. But I was on the Letterman show, and then literally overnight, it was like, you walk down, I walked down the street, and people knew me and knew my name, and it was intense. And I went out to LA not long after that, and I was a big fan of Seinfeld, and I remember being in Hollywood and like signing up for one of these things, like to be in the audience.
Oh, sure.
At Seinfeld, and it was the same thing. Like all of a sudden I got word, like I was at the show, they were like, Jerry Seinfeld wants to meet you. Why are you
sitting in the audience?
Sitting in the audience. So then I had a meeting. So I've still never really adjusted to being famous.
I know that about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if somebody's looking at me, I think it's because I probably have like food on me or something like that.
Yeah. I regularly try and tell you, pull the star card, lady. Do it. Tell people who you are.
They always recognize my voice.
I'm sure.
I could be somewhere like, Ross or Marshall's, hiding in the back, getting candles or cookware. That's my cookware.
Or nice sheets. They have good sheets there too.
Really, I don't do sheets. I do the cookware, and I do the candles. You can often find me there. And somebody was like, I thought that was you because I heard your voice. So means my shoplifting days are over.
They are, because you'll get recognized.
But anyway, let's bring in Chris, because he's going to have much more to say about being a successful writer and a producer of a film that I love, The Florida Project. We're focusing on so many, we had Stephen Rogers who wrote I, Tonya, and now Chris Bergoch is the writer-producer of the film Starlet, Tangerine, and The Florida Project, up for an Academy Award. Also been nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. Come right in here. Please welcome Chris Bergoch. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well. I always wear the headphones because I like to feel like I'm in, 1975. But
they look great.
But you don't have to.
I could hear
I
you
just
guys,
I like
if
hearing.
you can hear me.
I just like hearing myself.
I was just checking out your Twitter
Oh,
while I was waiting.
What did it?
I liked a couple of tweets.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the Lily
Did it say
Disney's wife. With
Did
the
you
name
know
of-
that?
Oh, of course. Yeah, the train ride, famous train ride, and
You know why I knew that? Because I was doing research about you.
Oh, no way.
For Disney, and I know you're a big Disney fan, and of course the Tide of Florida Project and all of that.
which a lot of people don't seem to connect with, and that's okay. But it
Really?
kind of gives people something to find out when they Google later on.
All the little hidden treasures of the movie, which of course we're going to get to. Okay, but I have to ask you, and you're from New Jersey.
Yeah, we
Do,
have.
do you remember do you know that I've never met someone from New Jersey that wasn't like really fun and personable?
Is that okay?
That's just my own Illeana.
This was like northern New Jersey, so I think people land at Newark Airport and that's all they know about New Jersey, right? And it's kind of not so aesthetically pleasing.
I just have like that's just an odd, like I'll meet someone and I think they're funny or nice, and I go, "Where are you from?" And they always,
yeah.
invariably they say New Jersey or Philadelphia is another
Oh,
one.
really? Okay.
I have rarely met an unpleasant
That's
person.
good to know. And nothing against the nice, fine people of Newark, New Jersey. Just
There's
it's
other
not-
good states.
It's not. Yeah.
Rhode
but,
Island's another pretty good state.
I've never even been
To
have you
Rhode
been
Island?
To Rhode Island.
Of course.
Okay.
I'm in Connecticut, so
Oh.
we're all jammed up
Okay.
on the East Coast.
Yeah, the tri-state fun.
So I want to ask you my favorite question. So growing up in New Jersey, do you remember the first movie you saw?
I do,
Who took
and
you
it's
to
kind
see
of
it?
fitting what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It was the first feature-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. My mom took me, and I was 4. And this was in Middle Village, New York, because I was born in New York City, and we lived in Queens until I was 5. So that's I'm pretty sure that was the first. There's no other memories before that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. My parents were hippies, so they were anti-Disney.
They were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty. I mean,
just-
we could see like Robert Altman and
That's
nudity
amazing.
and.
How cool is that? It's not.
It's cool now. When you're little, you're like, I want to see.
Yeah, I had to always sneak to the adult films with other friends. My parents didn't take us to anything, even if it was
Interesting.
like there was nothing wrong with Blade Runner, but because it was rated R, I wasn't allowed to see it when I was,
My parents were like very artsy, so it like they would take us to see, Record and things like that. And if you didn't understand it, or
But that's
it was
what
your fault.
made Illeana Douglas, I think. In
Yes.
your formative years, watching movies like that.
Yes, my parents were wrong, but I love them for it because their whole theory. They were both teachers, and they always thought that like that people were going to be, they thought that everyone was going to be a lot smarter than me is what they always. So they said it was important to have a wide range, and of course, then what happens is now people think I'm arrogant.
They do? Oh,
That's what always happens.
Okay.
If I start referencing, an artist or.
I think it depends on who you hang out with. A lot
Yeah.
of people would think that's cool, right?
Would they?
Yeah, I'd be
No,
impressed.
just shut up.
I wish I have. My memory is going. So like.
It is?
I always used to be able to drop references like that a lot quicker than I can now. It's just the hard drive's full.
That's exploding. I remember everything. It's a burden, but when I do my so were there filmmakers that you admired because
yeah.
your movies definitely have
Yeah.
a certain style. What I love about them is that they have that little bit of I don't know if Mike Lee is the right.
Big influence on Sean Baker.
Yeah, except that they have a beautiful aesthetic, which I
Yeah.
love. I love
thanks.
beauty in films.
We do too. We're cinephiles, and you'll watch a lot of good movies, but I could never sort of get over the fact that a lot of movies seem just like shot very flat.
Yeah.
And you wonder why. I mean, who's not saying something to the cinematographer or whatever that needs to be said?
Right. That just because it's kitchen sink,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean like it has to look, grainy or
I mean, unless
ugly
that's the
or
look they're going
something.
for, but like with a film like Starlet, we had pretty much no money. It was
Yeah.
$250,000.
Which you just gave me. I'm
Oh.
going to go home and see it.
Yeah, because they just took it off Netflix, so it's hard to tell people you can watch it there. And
Yeah.
February 1st it left us, but it'll come back.
Okay.
But we got these vintage Sean and Radium Chung, who shot the film, mad
Yeah.
genius, tracked down these like vintage rare like Russian Lomo lenses and like strapped it on a digital camera, and at least it gives it a little bit of a more cinematic,
Yeah.
because we couldn't have the budget to shoot film on that one, and there's cool experiments to be conducted.
So when you were, how did you guys meet? Did you meet in film? You met at NYU?
We did. We both went to Tisch. We were both kind of living. He's from New Jersey as well, more central.
So I already like him.
And we were both having sort of a parallel existence where we were both making movies with our friends ever since we were around 9. And it's such a cliche because you hear all these guys like talk about who inspired you. So for me, it's the same: Spielberg and Lucas, and just Indiana Jones movies, Back to the Future. And so those are the types of movies I made with my friends. And Sean always talks about wanting to direct the next Die Hard, and that rocked his world.
That's funny.
And then, we went to NYU and there was some sensibility shifting. But I also think that while he went a little bit more with European filmmaking sensibilities,
Right.
I still stayed a little, more Hollywood. And that's where I think we kind of clash and explode and create something that neither one of us would make on our own.
Well, that's what's any good partnership. What is if he adds something and then you add something, but having the same film language is so important, I think, as a writer producer.
Yeah.
You know, when you're working with a director.
A lot of times, though, when we're in the writing phase, we'll just regress back to, 18-year-old Chris and Sean fighting about, like, what do you mean you like that movie? I can't work with you anymore. But then, we come around and just take a break. It's time for a break.
So the other thing that's interesting about your growing up is you did spend time in Florida in your childhood, and then that was the whole seeds of the Florida project. So
yeah, I guess unlike your parents, my parents took me to Disney World.
I know that's
every couple of years.
I had neighbors. I wasn't. I remember I did have normal neighbors.
Okay.
So I did get to go.
I think it's cool. Your parents sound a lot cooler than most parents.
Listen, my father was anti-Dan Rather.
Okay.
Like you couldn't watch anything that was establishment
Okay.
is not
Okay,
good
I
in the
understand.
socialist household
I understand.
that we were.
But
yeah, I got to go to Disneyland with friends.
oh, okay.
I remember taking the train down. Oh my God.
Wait, from Connecticut to Orlando?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It was and
That's
Busch,
fun.
and we went to Busch Gardens, and then her older sister, like who was like kind of rough and ready, she like put us in one of those motels. And
Oh, really?
Went off with a guy that drove monster trucks.
Perfect.
So
They all drive them down.
Yeah. Again, that was like we kept that part hidden.
Oh,
But,
wow. Did you ever think, I have to ask though, you know where I'm going with this. Did you ever think back then that you would be part of it? And you're part of the magic. Right now, people are in the queue looking at you.
No, I know. I was so thrilled. I couldn't even believe that I don't even know how they found me, except that I was doing the Drew Carey show, which was a Disney show. And they had asked Drew, I think he did Pinocchio.
He did something called Sounds Dangerous with Drew Carey, which is about sound design. It's not there anymore.
But I can't imagine. I got this call from Disney.
Oh, wow.
I was like, yes, being Aerosmith's manager.
Yeah.
Yes, and we went. The only thing that was hard was the filming was hysterical.
I can't even imagine.
Because Aerosmith couldn't put two words together without the other one like screwing up, and then somebody would laugh.
Perfect. And it comes kind of across. I mean, and Ken Marino. In
and
there.
Ken Marino
Amazing.
almost went blind because they had to put because it was 130 degrees in order to shoot that.
Okay.
So they made him wear these special glasses. And I knew Ken from my comedy days.
Yeah.
He was in
the
Valley of the Dolls.
Oh, wow.
In this live show. All right, enough of me.
No, that's just incredible, and yeah, I mean, it's just. So
But the hard part was we had to actually do the ride. Shooting the thing was one thing, but we had to go back and actually ride the ride. And I was
but
pretty
you're part
sick.
of a pretty good ride. I mean, it's not just like some cheesy ride. That's
Yeah, make it happen.
Now, is there any truth to the? Can I just ask one more question?
Please
Do it.
You know about the rumors, right? With
Oh my God.
the gesture. I forget the name of the gesture.
What? I love it. Go ahead.
There's a secret. There's a whole. You can Google this right now about what Steven is doing in that.
Okay.
And it's very. I don't know, it's called something, but he's doing something with his fingers
Yes.
as a secret code, gesturing to something that's
Okay,
not a Disney act.
that is funny. That I don't know about.
But no one knows if it's actually. It's never been confirmed. I think he's denied it.
I don't remember him like pulling me aside
Okay.
and saying anything that was
Okay. Okay. I thought.
I remember
we'd
the
get
one
the
thing.
answer.
The other thing I remember about them that because of course they couldn't. They were like, "We'll ask our," and I was like, "Manager, the manager, it's right here. I'm your manager."
Yeah.
Like so, it was 130 degrees, and I was worried that Ken was going to lose his eyesight.
Oh wow.
Because
Wow.
as I said, he had to have these special.
Incredible. You're the reason why we have to get on the coaster and rush to the forum.
You
It's all
have
because of you.
to. You have to. I make it happen. Make it
my.
happen.
And now whenever I see a concert at the forum here, we always go to the forum, and we're dorks.
It was fun. It was fun. But I loved working with Disney. They were very sweet, and oh my God, they gave us. Did you get the secret tour of Disney where you go underground?
I've done it, and it kind of I don't like it because you see Tigger the way you don't want to see Tigger, like with his head off, and it stars your. I don't. Tigger's Tigger for me.
Yeah.
Keep the magic.
So just so people know, there is a complete underground city.
Yeah, utilidors.
Yeah.
They're known. Tigger's best friend. That's what they call them, the best friends.
And they've got codes for like when people get sick and things like that.
Yeah.
And they to tell us about like certain smells that they pump in.
Oh yeah, wow.
It's all-
My.
It works because whenever you enter Main Street, you want to eat.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Something
Everything.
fried,
Yeah.
preferably.
It's a beautiful world. Okay, we're getting way off track. So let's go back to
Okay.
you're
happens.
going up and down there, seeing all these hotels.
Yes.
For people who have not seen the Florida Project.
Yes.
First of all, shame on you.
Oh,
right?
well, we're a small movie.
It's a beautiful film. It's one of my favorite films of the
Thank you.
year.
Thank
I've
you.
tried to promote it, talk
that's
about it a
very sweet of
lot
you.
and
Thank
stuff because it's such a beautiful film and such an uplifting film.
And that's actually really from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, because it's not a Marvel movie, and so it's not on every bus stop and billboard, and so it does take word of mouth like that for people to even hear about it. And so many people still haven't. I talked to, and there's no advertising, and if they're not on social media and whatnot.
It's such a shame. People really need to see it because it really, and I enjoyed it more the second time I saw it.
Oh wow, cool.
And I loved it the first time. And that's why I told you when I saw it the second time, I liked it even more. Willem, first of all, the performance is unbelievable.
We're so lucky to have
Camera
Willem.
work. It's just the whole sense of place. But it's about people who live in these motels, hotels that are on the outskirts, right outside the Magic Kingdom of Disney
Right.
World. So the whole world is so wonderfully realized. And you found the hotel, you saw these, so
Yeah, that's how it all started, because even though I was going since I was 4, like you mentioned with my family, my mom actually relocated from New Jersey down there in around 2005. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until then when I would go visit her, she lived around a half hour away, and I'd have to go back and borrow her car and go to the parks and go on that Route 192. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started noticing all these kids, and they, I didn't think anything of it at first. But then back and forth so many times, you see them at one motel and another motel, and they're certainly not tourists. They don't have the Disney bags and the Disney, shirts. So I started doing some Google searching, and the first thing that came up was San Bernardino. I saw that's when the issue of what they call the hidden homeless first came to my attention. And so I'm like, wow, it's not just here. This is, families living in hotels right there, and Anaheim as well. And then there was just something that really stuck with me about it happening right in the shadow of Cinderella Castle.
Right.
But yet, what intrigued me was that they were making their own magic, just like we did as kids. Just like they
Yeah.
were playing hide and seek on the side of the road and playing wiffle ball. And so I immediately called Sean, and I was like, I think we finally have, because he's always wanted to do a movie. We both have always wanted to do a movie with kids, and we just never found the right idea. And he loves the Little Rascals. And so this really lent itself to being like a modern Little Rascals
yeah.
in a way.
And in terms of the film, the casting of the young girl, you found a local
Yes.
girl. I mean, like, how do you cast for a
We're so lucky.
6-year-old?
Brooklyn Prince, America.
Crazy.
Came through at the last minute too, because we had so many kids come in, kids that were in the system.
Yeah.
We worked with a crowd shot local casting down there, and we were casting in the motels in some convention space, and then we were just like Sean found Valeria, who plays Jancy, in the local Target with her mom, and so we were casting in all the ways you can cast, and just seeing as many kids as we could, because we were never getting the right combination, because we gave them sides, and they can do that.
Right.
And some of them were even quite good, with the readings, but then some were thrown for a loop with the improv part of it. And just like, okay, we created these scenarios for them. Like, there was this one that we always would do where it's like, okay, there's some 12-year-olds in the pool, but that's your pool. Kick them out. And sometimes they just didn't know what to do. And
Right.
So we were going to delay production because we couldn't find our Mooney. And then a month before, Brooklyn came in, and just like it was amazing, because she just
Wow.
was cracking us up.
And there's oftentimes, they're dealing with very mature, I don't want to give too much away, but in one particular instance, which is very funny and so well handled, of the older woman who wants to be topless by the pool.
Oh yeah, Sandy Kane, who's known as the naked cowgirl. If you ever go to Times Square, she's there singing naked.
It's just such...
Hey.
What I love about that movie, again, there's so many things I love, but it's effortless. It's just an effortless film. You know, like, yeah, you see people like that all the time. Like, you totally believe that she lives in that place, that that's what she does. But again, working with the kids, their parents didn't have any issues with that. And the kids are effortless.
Yeah.
That's how kids would react to a situation like that. They would just laugh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it was great. Their parents are all such great, great collaborators on the film. And, we did have concerns, especially if some of the families were a little more religious, we were like, is this going to be an issue? And, they taught them that, this is their character, and their character could say these words, but that doesn't mean Mooney can say, an F word, but Brooklyn cannot. And they understood that.
Oh, I don't know how you got them to believe.
I mean, I guess because they're right at the cusp of, Brooklyn was 6 when we shot, and Valeria was 5. Christopher Rivera, who plays Scooty, was 7. He was the oldest. And,
it's absolutely crazy.
That was the only issue that we faced. Sometimes the boys and the girls didn't quite click that well behind the scenes at that age.
Yeah.
So there was some separation needed at certain times.
And what about the casting of Willem Dafoe?
Willem was also really late in the game. We wrote this role, and it was more of a. At one point, I remember it being more of like a tough ex-vet kind of guy, and then we couldn't get some of the actors that we were talking to, and Willem through ICM, Sean's with ICM, and he was interested because he liked Tangerine, the previous film, and wanted to work with us, and loved the script. So we were really lucky at the last minute; it just came together with him, and Sean and I felt if we were gonna get to work with Willem. Let's modify this role and morph it into something that we have never seen or that we would want to see from Willem.
Right.
Make him sort of a really likable, nice guy and a surrogate dad kind of guy.
Yeah.
So we did a rewrite, as we always do, through production, and combined 2 characters. We had a brother character of Bobby that kind of
interesting.
Gave him a little bit more depth by combining the 2 roles and stuff like that.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe is so great in the film. Again, effortless, funny. There's some little... I guess taking care of some accidents with like birds wandering into the shot.
Yeah, which is an impromptu.
It just seems like he's just enjoying it.
Yeah, it was great. He's amazing.
Yeah, and you talk
really cool.
you talk about the idea of like this being the surrogate dad, and isn't that?
Yeah.
Did you take advantage of some of these? You said this at the screening that I saw. The kind of some of the tropes of Disney of.
Oh yeah,
not having parents and
when this idea goes back to 2011 when we were writing Starlet. Before we even shot Starlet was when I first started sending Sean some pictures of various motels and just observations of all these amazing locations that we were thinking about. So we always had this idea of a single mom, just another Disney trope. You always see the single parent.
Right.
And so it was always going to be a mom and her daughter living in a motel trying to make their way. And we always had the ending. For some reason, we always knew it was going to be, and no spoilers, but just some sort of flight of fancy at the end.
Yeah.
So Willem just kind of played into that with, he was kind of, that was informed by a lot of the research we did and talking to the motel managers. There was one in particular named John Manning, and he was a very big inspiration. And it seems like a lot of the people who work there may have gotten these jobs and they just thought they were going to be motel managers, not becoming more when these families start moving in, and they're sort of like, but yet they can't get too close because if they're not paying, they still have to, do their job and evict them, which is a sad situation for them.
What about this idea too, which is so crazy, where they evict someone for 24 hours? Like they have to
That's
leave
another
the
reason.
room and then come back.
Whenever film students ask me for the advice about the research, because we talk a lot about this was 2 years of research and going down there about a dozen times for like a week and just immersing ourselves with the people from that lifestyle. And that's one of the things that came out of that, where it's like you hear about these families that have to leave for 24 hours just so they don't establish residency. And they have cameras, because that was the first thing that Sean and I asked is, why can't you just say you left? And like they document everything, and they have to show the pictures of the empty room. So we knew we had to work stuff like that in there. It just was like fascinating and terrible that they would have to do that and put all their stuff in storage. And by the way, most of the motels aren't that nice and wouldn't let them store their stuff there. They just have to take all their stuff and figure out what to do for a night with it and leave the property. And so, you're trying to, when you're writing and you have all these index cards on the wall, when you're trying to, fix the puzzle pieces, that was an amazing moment because now we can get to the sleepover that we wanted to do because they can have to sleep over, so it all comes together from
Right.
the research.
And what are some of the things that didn't make it in? I was reading because there's so many wonderful little location things in Florida,
Yeah.
which
There
are
was
just
so many. Oh man, we had a list of, I put together a list of 25 locations that you see, like Orange World is in there, which is a gift
just
shop.
great.
That's amazing. And
Wizard
World, yeah, the gift shop, giant wizard. And there were 25 of those, but you can't just put locations in or else the whole movie becomes a long, boring tour sequence.
Right.
And so we tried to keep the ones that sort of serve the story, even if it was so just subtle. When Jancy takes her first steps, that's why it's by the wizard. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's kind of like an Obi-Wan or, Gandalf type of homage there. But there were places like there was a theme park called Splendid China, and it closed in 2003, and it was just the Chinese government owned it, I think, and miniatures of landmarks like the Great Wall. But since 2003 to about 2015 and 16, it was just rotting away. And
Yeah.
so you'd go there. It's private property, and they have all the signs, no trespassing. But we would sneak in, take the location pictures, and it was amazing because it looked like a post-apocalyptic, China miniature China. And we wanted a sequence where the kids would sneak in there, and instead of where the safari is right now, Mooney takes Jancy, and that's their theme park that they get to go to, and it's
Yeah.
still just as magical as the other parks because they're using their imagination. And then as soon as we started shooting, they leveled it because Jimmy Buffett is building
what?
the Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville condos
no.
and senior citizen homes and such. So
Doesn't he have enough?
I don't know. He ruined that sequence.
Oh.
But the safari sequence is very lovely replacement.
It's beautiful. I love I love the ice cream. I love the wide. So when you do the locations like that, again, I talk about the idea of it being effortless and some of the camera work.
Alexis Zabe, who shot it, genius.
Just beautiful. A lot of it is it natural lighting? Is it just daylight or how?
It's a mix. I mean, he definitely had his complicated setups going on, but
You've
a
got
lot of it is natural, like when we're like a safari scene and stuff like that.
And the building is purple. Was it just?
It's how it is. Yeah.
It's incredible. Did you just luck out? That
Well,
it
I
was
actually
like
stayed there and-
so wonderfully purple.
When I used to go to Disney World with my friends, we, on limited budgets, we would do like one night or 2 nights in an expensive Disney resort, and then the other 5 nights would be at a place like that, because it's a lot. That's how you save money. And Magic Castle we stayed at in 1995, and so it never left my mind because it was just that's before my mom ever moved down there and stuff.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of this movie is that they have their own magic, and so we needed that. It had to be that because she's living in her own castle. So that's why, and they were great. They agreed to it. And
residents were there while you filmed.
Yeah, we
and-
couldn't disrupt anything and had to be
Right.
really respectful. But as long as we didn't get in the way, we can do our thing. And
Do people go there now? Is it on Trivago or?
if you do the hashtag Magic Castle, you'll see all these tourists are going there and staying there. And I think if I was the motel, they should. Room 323 is where they should make it.
Yes, they
charge more
should-
money or something.
They should play Florida Project,
Yeah.
all the time.
Or take it one step further and put like an animatronic Sandy Kane by the pool without the top on, and just make it an interactive.
I would do all of that. It seemed like such a a great place. And then I don't want to give away again the ending, but
It's fine. I mean,
it's just such an incredible ending. And it's shot. You obviously had to steal it. Get to steal the shot.
yeah.
Did you go back to your iPhone shooting?
iPhone
or?
6S? Yeah, we went
I
back
mean,
to
how do
our
you
gorilla-
rehearse something like that?
We didn't rehearse it. We just did it a few times.
Pray. that it
Yeah, and
works.
it's a miracle that I still can't believe that this movie, because we never really knew.
Because if it doesn't work,
Right.
you're in big trouble. The
Right.
whole ending of the movie.
Well, we had backups. I had done so much
okay.
scouting.
Okay.
And we were going to try to fake it. And the closest we got is there's a town called Celebration that Disney actually used to own. They don't own
Right.
it anymore. It's right there near Kissimmee. And they have their own main street, and the bricks at a certain block is very similar to the bricks on Main Street in the Magic Kingdom. And so we were thinking about shooting it just with all close-ups and throwing some Mickey Mouse ice cream bars on the ground and stuff like that to sort of get the idea where they were going.
Right.
It just wasn't going to have the same effect.
Yeah.
And so we just went, just gave it a shot. And we weren't our attitude was we're not like this other movie that was sort of an anti-Disney thing that snuck into the parks.
Right.
We're not anti-Disney at all. And in fact, we're promoting ideas that Walt himself would like, which is imagination and, family. So since we weren't doing anything...
Yeah, it's a very uplifting ending.
And we weren't really showing any of the characters either. We figured,
No, I just meant again, the technicality of we've gone through the whole movie, which is great and kind of realistic, and then it just veers into this wonderful fantasy, and that's also where the music kicks in.
Yeah. There's no score before that.
And so it's very visceral and very moving, and
great.
It starts emotionally with Mooney, Brooklyn, having this child. I mean, there's nothing more upsetting than watching.
It's her first vulnerable moment because she's always sort of in a leader in the film. And thank you for saying that. Even though if you didn't feel that way, that's cool too. It's so divisive. The ending. There are people on Twitter hate the ending.
Oh, really?
And then there are people who just love it. And then there are people who debate, whether or not is it a literal ending or is it more of a fantasy?
Right.
And we love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool to me. I'd rather have that happen than maybe everybody love it, or it's just makes for some cool, discussion.
Chris, I have a question about that, about the shooting at Disney.
Yeah.
So you didn't get permits to shoot there, but how is it that you still use the footage?
You have to talk to the lawyers about that one. But we got a lot of advice on that.
Okay.
Actually, some of the same lawyers that advised the other gang. I'll just be open about that. I didn't like that film. It's called Escape from Tomorrow or something like that. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
They shot in the parks with DSLRs.
Oh, okay.
But they clearly aren't coming from a magical perspective like we were trying to do.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Talk to your attorneys.
Well, again, what I loved about it, as I keep using the same word, is that it's effortless. It's again, it has this smooth, emotional, triumph, I think,
Thank you.
Which is, it lifts. I love things that kind of lift off, and where everything is working, the music is working, the camera work is working. I mean, everything is like you're running,
Right.
You feel lifted off the ground. So
yeah, we worked hard on the score there, and if you pay attention,
everything has to work.
The score is actually Celebration, which you hear in the beginning of the film. Cool and the Gang. It's just an orchestrated version of that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Kind of subtle.
Yeah.
We didn't want to hit people over the head with it, and that was the intent. For me, it's a great example, this whole movie, about, even though it's a dream come true, definitely Sean and I, if each of us had made this movie separately, it would have been two other different films, because my instincts are just that 3-act structure, and this has got to happen by this page. And Sean was like, listen, for this one, I want it to feel like you spent a summer with these characters. And so I had to lay back and relax on my programming of screenwriting for this movie. So it is a little blurred. And he was right. It does feel great. Now, it's, some people think it should have been edited a little bit more. But, like I said, we don't want to make movies for everybody. Yeah. And it's nice to hear.
I disagree. I was just, sometimes you watch movies, just to give you an example of what I watched The Killing of a Sacred Deer the other night.
Yeah.
Did you like that movie?
I actually do.
Oh my God. I loved it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
But I started watching it, and I was, you have your phone and your dog, and you're distracted, and I was just like, all right, this is unfair to do this movie.
That's a good way to put it.
And I went and I paused it. I went myself, got a cup of tea. Okay. I went back.
What part was it when you made that decision that okay, this needs to?
Well, maybe when they had the open heart, like the beating heart.
Yeah.
And I saw, and I was just like, I'm not doing a service to this film, and it needs all my attention.
Oh my God, I feel like that's another example of a movie that should have got more awards attention. It's
there's
performances are amazing.
It's incredible. I mean, again, that's very much how I felt about your film. But when I watch the night, and I don't read reviews, that's sort of how I am. I'm not really. I just like seeing the movie and I had seen Tangerine, so
wow, cool.
I knew a little bit about, but I just was in the world immediately, and I was like, oh, I really like it. And I think again, what I liked was following the kids' perspective. That I knew it was that the movie immediately was going to be from the kids' perspective, and that's why I was I was automatically kind of in from the beginning. Whether that was the Steadicam or the performances or everything.
Yeah, we were always shooting
you
those
did your
low
job.
angles. Thank you. That was always one of our missions and on the mandate.
Yeah, like you said, it was like, oh, this is what kids do. They get into trouble. They knock things over.
And it made it tough for the writing too, because we were trying to figure out how to tell this story and have certain scenes play out where the kids weren't involved. So we kind of came up with that rule where as long as the kids can drift in a scene, it doesn't have to be every single scene 100% shot or like over their shoulder, let's say. So you have the scene with the Brazilians, which was one of the earliest ones we wrote many, many years ago. And we knew we wanted that mix up there. And so that's why the kids kind of stroll into it and try to help and get tips and with the luggage. We had a hard time with that because we thought we were going to have to remove the scene because we couldn't figure out how the kids played into it.
Yeah. And I keep saying to move on to Tangerine, but the last thing I loved is when they're trying to sell the perfume. Now, was that a hidden camera?
It is, yes. That's the total, just like, going back to our old, because we did a show called Greg the Bunny where we would do stuff like that a lot. Yeah. And so, that's just get the camera hidden, long lens.
Make people buy horrible perfume.
And then just have to run after them and sign the release after you shoot and explain the whole thing.
Oh my God. Did everyone get upset? They were like...
Nobody got upset. In Tangerine...
What about when they're eating? Like, she goes to eat it. That's another great scene.
Oh,
she goes to eat at the hotel.
That's all scripted and actors. Some background actors that we hired. But, with Tangerine... So at the end in donut time, all those customers that you see come in are real customers, and we're shooting on iPhone, so they have no idea that they're. And then we had to wait for the scene to play out. They buy their donuts. They leave the store. They're walking across, Santa Monica Boulevard, and we're still rolling because there's stuff that has to play out in the scene with the actors. And then you're waiting. Come on, just yell cut, yell cut. Okay, boom, and everybody has to do a mad dash to get the releases signed. And that's like, I wish we had footage of that.
Oh my God.
It's just such a ridiculous, because we were only like a 7 or 8 person crew on that movie. So even Sean, we're all just running after these people.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, so let's go back to Tangerine, which was before this, which was interesting. I heard you say something about that Florida Project was 5 years of no's, but how quickly, and then you did Starlet, but then how did Tangerine come about?
So that's the thing. We were
very LA based.
Yeah, we were shooting Starlet in 2011, and we thought Florida Project would be the next. Yeah, we had that idea during the making of Florida Project, but it was going to be a bigger budget. We thought that Starlet was $250,000, and that's a lot of money, but not for a movie. With just the food alone.
It's like a day.
Yeah. So we thought maybe we could jump up to Florida Project level. At that time, and nobody was having it. You go in the pitch and people's eyes are rolling, and what else you got? What else you got? And Sean had made a movie before Starlet called Prince of Broadway, and the Duplass brothers were fans. Oh. And so Mark had this offer to Sean where if we had a micro budget idea that lent itself to like $100,000 ish, come to him and let's talk. And so when we, it kept taking forever to get Florida Project off the ground, and so we always wanted to do a movie set against that backdrop. We lived a couple blocks from Donut Time.
Yeah, so I pass it on my way. It's one of the places I take class.
Right, it's Danny Trejo bought it now.
Now it's like Donut. Once again, you have turned it into this popular destination.
I still haven't been though ever since Danny took it over and made it Trejo's Donuts. I haven't been able to bring myself to check. I will check it out.
It was so wonderfly sleazy. So again, I'm talking in code just for people who don't know what Tangerine is about. It's about two. You set it up.
Yeah, no, Cinderella gets out of prison on Christmas Eve, and she decides she has to track down the pimp who broke her heart.
At donut time.
Yes. Yeah, she makes the mistake of the number one rule: never fall in love with your pimp.
Yes, and this area, which is Santa Monica and Highland, is kind of like a really interesting... Yeah. Trannyville, like
unofficial red light district back then. It's cleaned up now much more.
Because
I haven't seen activity lately.
I see things all the time.
You're out there scouting. Are you?
Well, and on Romaine.
Okay.
Which is one street over.
Yeah, I was on Mansfield back when we were doing a show called. We were at Hollywood Center Studios, so I would walk to work every day and see the activity
Oh my God! Well, if anyone wants to go to Orange and Romaine,
Okay.
that is like
That's the current hot.
anything between La Brea and Highland.
Yeah.
In that general area.
But it wasn't so much even that. It was the fact that every time we would pass by, there was like major drama, fights breaking out, you know.
That's what, wigs flying.
Yeah, wigs. And so
Yeah.
we were attracted to this, and we're like, there's got to be something here.
Interesting.
And we just kind of took to the streets, and Sean and I that's how we always start every film, just from like a journalistic approach. Just to
Yeah.
talk to people, again, in the backdrop of where we're setting our story. Not to sort of take anyone's story or, you know, just sort of like get inspired by what, you know, what their perspectives are on the activity. And then that's when we ran into Maya Taylor there's an LGBTQ center on McAdam.
Yes.
And she was just hanging out with her friends, and she was one of the only ones that was willing, because I don't know, I think to this day people might have thought we were cops. There's like these two white guys are like rolling around asking questions. And it was weird, and we were just like, why won't people talk to us? We're trying to be so nice and respectful. And she greeted us with open arms, and we just had a few lunches with her and dinners, and then she's like, I got to introduce you to my roommate Kiki, who plays Cindy in the film. And because, again, we were just looking for collaborators and sort of windows into the world, but we eat lunch with Maya and Kiki one day at the Jack in the Box on La Brea. And it was just like, Sean and I were so entertained that our mouths hurt from laughing, you know, and they had such chemistry that later that night we're like, well, maybe we'll make the movie about, or center it around them somehow.
That's
And
amazing.
a big inspiration for the direction we took.
How do you know to always have humor in your films? Like, you know, sometimes the Mike Lee movies can be,
Right.
you know, you just feel like all of humanity on your shoulder. And again, like you have real life situations, kitchen sink, but there's humor there.
Well, two-part answer. I think we always gravitated toward that from our Greg the Bunny roots.
Yeah.
And just from everything that we love, you know. But also, we never expected Tangerine to be so much of a comedy, considering the subject matter. And it was Maya and Kiki who were like, look, we want to be able to watch a movie with ourselves that we can laugh at.
Wow.
And Sean, I remember, was like, okay, but we don't want to, you know, be exploiting any situations here. And like, they were like, we'll tell you if you're, you know, crossing that line. And they did, you know, every once in a while. And that's why it's so great to find collaborators like this, because it kind of steers you in the right direction. When, you know, because again, we can be attacked for not being part of that world, and do we have the right to tell that story and stuff? But for me, I always answer that I don't even look at it that way when I write. I just treated it like this is a human, this is a girl with a broken heart, and we've all had a broken heart. So if you approach it that way, just from a, you know, humanistic place that everybody can relate to, I think that's how we go about it, and it helps.
So when you're deciding, were you the first iPhone? I mean, were you like the first? I mean,
they say that, and it's like some people have gotten angry. We never claimed that. There were a couple of others.
So they sold the movie.
Yeah, and lots of docs.
They did it all on iPhones.
But I guess we were the first with a major distribution. Magnolia Pictures picking us up at Sundance. I guess that could be said. And the iPhone was just a budgetary thing. You know, we never wanted to do some sort of gimmicky thing. It's just because we had no money, and we were out of favors up to that. You know, this is Sean's Tangerine was his fifth film, fifth feature. So, you know, that's it. People weren't even taking the calls anymore. Like, could we borrow this or that? Can we use your equipment? So.
And when you're working on iPhones, do you do it using tripods, lights? Like, tell me how this technically works.
Anybody can do it. It was the iPhone 5S, just because that was the latest at the time. And then Moondog Labs, Sean found a prototype company. They had a Kickstarter, and they had the anamorphic lens that just slips onto the iPhone, because we still wanted it to be like 2.35 and as cinematic as we can get it. And so he reached out to them, and they were nice enough to lend us some prototypes, and just a Steadicam. It's called a Steadicam Smoothie, which is just for the lighter weight stuff, not terribly expensive, and
and sound.
Sound was actually done the old school way.
Okay.
We had an amazing guy named Iron Strauss that we've worked with for years from New York, and he's another mad genius. I mean, there's a scene in Starlet. It's not too much of a spoiler, but we're at the adult Exotica Expo.
Okay.
And we thought the whole thing would need to be ADR'd, because you know how loud conventions can get.
Yeah.
But it was all perfect sound. I mean, I don't know how he does it. And so, he would just do wireless mics and boom some scenes, and we slated it. You know, just you have to have good sound. When people say you shoot on an iPhone, you can, but people always discredit how important the sound is. It's 50%. And if you have just the iPhone mic, it's going to sound so, you know, amateur, and you really have to focus on getting the sound right.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes, like, I'll say that to people. And yeah, they always, you know, I always say sound. Yeah, I'm a big sound person.
They don't listen?
No. I go on every sound.
They'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like having a rock in your shoe. It just gets irritating after a while if the sound's not good.
Yeah.
Well, I always say when you're on set, the only thing you don't want to hear is a producer saying, I thought you said you were going to take care of that. Or, you know, like one of those dreaded. Who is in charge of who's supposed to take care of that?
Well, yeah, we were all No, I mean, and like I said, we were all wearing a lot of hats for Tangerine. There's just like seven or eight of us. So that's why Shi-Chang, who's one of the producers of Tangerine, plays Mama-san in the film.
Yeah.
And so she's really behind that counter, really serving donuts, taking real people's money. Meanwhile, she's working on, like, you know, getting all these contracts in order and doing all her producer duties at the same time. It was just madness.
So now with Florida, I feel like then you did Tangerine, then Florida Project, and then now it's like sort of overnight people know who you are. Does it feel that way? Does it feel like...
It still feels like an upward battle. Because,
really?
Yeah, you know, because these films, like I said, they're not Star Wars or Marvel. And I feel like my biggest fear is that, just like with what happens with actors, you know, you can get typecast as a writer and think that they, you know, this is all we can do, the small little no budget indies, the edgy indies, and you know, I do want to tell big stories and studio tentpole movies, and you know, I think they can be done well, and so, you know, that's what we're working on right now. You know?
A huge tentpole. Yeah. Are there segments?
Soderbergh got it right. I think, you know, he would do like one for them, one for him kind of thing, and do the Ocean's movies. And
do you listen to his commentaries? I'm obsessed with his commentaries.
Oh yeah.
The Mike Nichols ones are my personal favorite. I learn a lot from listening to Mike Nichols. He always says great. He talks about something which I feel like, again, I'm going to keep referencing the Florida Project, he says the final thing is just like this magic of the emulsion, which you just don't know. He goes, you're shooting something and it seems like it works. And then when you see it projected for the first time, he said something magic happens in the bath.
That's true, yeah.
That you don't know is there. And that's what I feel about the Florida Project. It's in that.
And the odd little moments that you didn't think would work sometimes do.
Yeah.
It works both ways. And while we were on set with the Florida Project, I don't know if I mentioned this when we talked about it, but, you know, Sean and I are always rewriting, and that's why I love working with him. This is not just like, okay, we finish our shooting draft and then they go shoot it.
Right.
This is like constantly evolving on set, constantly trying to get ideas from what the actors are doing. And it's very give and take. And at the end, when we were shooting that emotional scene with Brooklyn, it was scripted where Brooklyn was supposed to be going to Jancy and saying, come on one last adventure with me. But it didn't feel right to have her taking the lead at that moment. She's vulnerable, and this is the first time that her friend Jancy could be the hero. And so while we were shooting it, you know, I went to Sean and said, you know, what if we try it this way, shoot two ways, you know, shoot two endings. And he's so confident that he knew right away, like, no, that is the way to do it. Now, that's why I love working with him, but the ADs and the script supervisors, not so much, because they're like, come on now, what are we doing? What's this change? Or aren't we supposed to? It throws a monkey wrench into things a little bit.
I'll bet, which again, like when you're off camera and you have to have that confidence, anything stressful ever happen that freaks you out? Or, I mean, again, when you're working in these situations, real life, like Tangerine and in a donut place. I mean, you seem so calm. Like, do you ever, for what freaks you out?
We love it. I mean, what freaks me out is if, you know, there hasn't been enough time allotted, and you have to make those compromises, and you wanted to, you know, get it a certain way, and you just can't. You have to just make those cuts. That's probably the only thing that gets me a little bummed out on set.
So are you going to the Oscars? Are you going to go to the Oscars?
I'm still waiting to hear. I think so. Because, we didn't get Best Picture, right? So now it's all just hanging and dangling, and I'm like waiting to...
Wait a minute, but you have an actor who's in...
I know, I think so. I'm told just, you know, A24 is being awesome, and I'm just still waiting for the call. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But...
It's an honor to be nominated, I guess. You get to go to all
just
the
amazing
parties.
because it creates this new dialogue and it puts it on people's radar that might have not heard about the Florida Project. Just seeing the nominee lists and stuff.
I know. It's amazing. Can you talk at all about stuff you're working on now?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, me and Sean still have, we always have the idea vault, just like Florida Project was in for those 5 years. And we're hoping to do this one that we've been excited about for a long time. It's a sort of an unconventional love story. And then I have the other stuff, for the meetings I'm taking while Sean is figuring his stuff out, the bigger stuff, the more mainstream stuff.
Right.
That he might not be attracted to. So I would love to do,
Would you be attracted to television, or do you prefer film?
Yeah, right now there may be a deal to write a pilot for an idea that I had come up with, and so we're just trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So I would love to. I mean, that's the thing is we have these dreams coming true, but listen, I mean, to be honest, and I know this is probably like swallowing pride, but we're living on credit cards because no one's getting rich off these movies,
Right?
And it's like Writers Guild minimum, so it's tricky. It's like, how could we keep going? How could we just at least get enough to live between these projects?
It was interesting. Tamara pointed out that on your website you had a very similar philosophy to me, which is like it's all life's a movie anyway. So it's like you just write it every day. That's like what I'm always. I'm like,
that's from the Muppet movie. That's a quote from the end there.
I don't even know that.
I didn't know what it was. I figured it was from something. I just
the
couldn't
great
figure
Paul
out what
Williams.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love Paul Williams.
Again, it just gives me chills at the end of the Muppet movie when they're all singing that.
That's what I always think. It's all a movie anyway. You can always
Yeah,
keep
it keeps things interesting, and I wouldn't trade it at all because I have the friends who you see that you went to school with who have the normal jobs, the 9-to-5 jobs, and they're happy. They're doing their thing, and they have families, and they have houses and stability. But I just wouldn't want that. I want to tell stories no matter which way.
Well, that is very interesting because how do you keep that's gonna be my last question, is keeping that sensibility. And Tamara was saying about me in the beginning, like she's like, I never think I'm successful. I'm just like trying to work, and I relate to normal people. And the same thing with you with success. How do you keep the sensibility of telling smaller stories?
Well, wait, I have to challenge you here. When you're in, there had to be a point where you're seeing yourself in, the big screen and multiplexes.
No, that's the book. I always
1991.
I always think, because that's what Mike Nichols said to me. He said, you're in the movie and you're out of the movie. He said, I feel like you're in the audience and you somehow got in the movie and you're communicating with the audience.
Wow, it's like The Last Action Hero. I think that was the plot of that Schwarzenegger movie.
But I was like, that's my whole act. I said, that's my act.
Oh, no. People loved you. We all loved you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so
But
you were famous.
but that's what I mean. I feel like that whole, I'm just excited to be in show business.
Right, I see. Yeah, so I guess, as long as you have it in your heart, right?
Yeah.
You just keep going.
And that enthusiasm about telling film, telling stories. And again, like not everybody would say, I'm going to take a story about, kids living in a motel in Florida and turn it into something that's kind of Fellini-esque and beautiful and magical. And I love smaller stories too. Like, some of the movies that I've really liked this year, another movie I really liked called Maudie, which not a lot of people saw, again, is sort of a smaller story, but sometimes I find them to be the most meaningful.
Right. That's why I have so much respect for Sean. I've worked with a lot of collaborators and, like I said, there's a lot of reasons why it works. But one of the things about him is he could have went off and probably made the Marvel movies. And, he had the opportunities and, he had it in his heart to tell this story. And, that's a lot of people would just, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just think that it's really cool that, we're motivated by, this weird need that we just have to tell these stories no matter what, even if it means sacrificing a big paycheck to tell it.
Well, what I like is the idea that it's telling the stories, but you have a very specific aesthetic, and that's what I love. And so, continued success in the. So now that you've been identified, because sometimes you like a film, but you don't. you can't identify that. There's so many filmmakers, you can't identify them. And so now I can identify your work as it continues and progresses.
Oh, yay.
So thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Come back anytime.
Yeah, look for Chris on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Bergoch. Chris, ChrisBergoch.
You got it.
Doesn't
But I
sound like
accept,
it's spelled.
all pronunciation.
Yes, you do. As I had some clever ones.
I'll be looking for you at the
And go
Oscars.
see the Florida Project. It's
Yes.
available online now,
Oh, yeah,
as
you
well
can
as
watch
in
it all
theaters.
the ways.
Yeah.
iTunes, Amazon, the
exactly.
DVD and Blu-rays next week on the 20th.
Yes, yeah.
Oh
So
my
you
God,
have no
perfect.
excuse, people. You must see it. Also,
Perfect.
you can buy Illeana's book, I Blame Dennis Hopper,
Yes,
in
you can.
bookstores and on
There it is.
Amazon. It's a
Thank
great
you.
read. You should buy it. Also, like our page on Facebook. Check out our website, illeanaspodcast.com.
Yes, and as I always say, everyone's life is a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And today's the end of our little movie. Thanks so much for being here, Chris. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.